Every day, I see the same pattern repeat itself in different faces, different bodies, different stories, but the same underlying mistake hiding beneath all of it. People genuinely believe they are doing something good for their health. They commit to walking, they stay consistent for weeks or even months, and yet instead of feeling stronger, lighter, more energized, they slowly begin to notice discomfort creeping in. It starts subtly. A slight stiffness in the knees when getting up from a chair, a dull ache in the lower back after a walk, a strange heaviness in the legs that wasn't there before. And then, over time, those small signals become louder, harder to ignore, until one day they sit in front of me and say the exact same sentence I've heard hundreds of times before. "Doctor, I've been walking regularly, so why do I feel worse?" And that's the moment where everything shifts, because the issue is almost never the walking itself. Walking is one of the most powerful, accessible tools the human body has for maintaining function, especially after 50. The issue is how that walking is being done. Because when movement is done incorrectly, the body doesn't interpret it as healing. IT interprets it as stress, and stress, when repeated daily, quietly accumulates into damage. What most people don't realize is that after 50, your body is no longer forgiving in the same way it once was. In your 20s or 30s, you could move poorly, sit poorly, walk poorly, and your system would absorb the impact without immediate consequence. But now, every mechanical error, every inefficient pattern, every imbalance begins to leave a trace. Not instantly, not dramatically, but gradually, consistently, until it becomes your new normal. And the most dangerous part is that these mistakes feel harmless while you're doing them. Take the very beginning of a walk, for example. Most people step outside and immediately accelerate into their usual pace. There's no transition, no adjustment, no preparation. It feels efficient, even productive, but internally, your body is being forced to react too quickly. Muscles that have been inactive suddenly need to contract repeatedly under load. Joints that have been still are expected to glide smoothly without preparation. Blood vessels that were operating at resting demand are suddenly asked to handle increased flow. At that moment, your system is not ready. And when the body is pushed before it is prepared, it compensates. Muscles tighten instead of flowing smoothly. Joints experience friction instead of lubrication. The heart responds with a sharper spike instead of a gradual rise. You don't feel this immediately. That's what makes it deceptive. But over weeks and months, that repeated abrupt start begins to build tension patterns in the body that don't fully release. Then something else happens. Something even more subtle. As you continue walking, your posture begins to shift without you noticing. Your head moves slightly forward. Your shoulders round just a bit. Your chest narrows. It's not dramatic enough to catch your attention, but it's enough to change how force travels through your body. Now, instead of your skeleton carrying your weight efficiently, your muscles are forced to stabilize what your structure is no longer supporting properly. That shift alone changes everything. Your neck begins to carry more load than it was designed for. Your upper back tightens to compensate. Your lower spine adjusts its curve to maintain balance. And suddenly, a simple walk has turned into a full-body strain pattern that repeats step after step. But it doesn't stop there. Because posture doesn't just affect your muscles and joints. T affects your breathing. When your chest collapses forward, your lungs cannot fully expand. Your breathing becomes shallow, restricted, and when oxygen intake decreases, even slightly, your muscles fatigue faster, your brain receives less oxygen, your energy drops, so you finish your walk feeling tired, maybe even drained, and you assume that's normal. It's not. It's a signal. Now imagine repeating that same pattern every single day. The body doesn't reset overnight the way most people think it does. It adapts to what you repeat. So if you walk with tension, your body learns tension. If you move with imbalance, your body reinforces imbalance. And then comes another layer that most people overlook entirely, your feet. Every step you take sends force through your body. That force starts at the ground and travels upward. Your feet are supposed to absorb part of that impact, distribute it evenly, and pass it along efficiently. But over time, the natural cushioning in your feet decreases. The structures that once protected your joints are no longer as effective. So now what used to be a controlled, softened impact becomes sharper, more direct. If your footwear doesn't compensate for that change, the force doesn't disappear. It travels upward, into your ankles, into your knees, into your hips, into your spine. And here's where it gets interesting. The body doesn't always show damage where the problem starts. You might feel knee pain, but the issue began at your feet. You might feel lower back discomfort, but the imbalance started much lower in the chain. That's why so many people get confused. They treat the symptom, not the cause. And while all of this is happening, another mistake quietly reduces the benefits of the entire walk. Your arms. It seems insignificant. something most people never think about. But when your arms remain still, your movement becomes incomplete. Walking is not just a lower body activity, it's a coordinated cross-body motion that distributes effort across your entire system. When that coordination is missing, your body compensates again, your spine rotates differently, your balance shifts slightly, your rhythm becomes less efficient. And over time, those small inefficiencies accumulate into fatigue, strain, and discomfort. Then comes the modern habit that has quietly made everything worse: the phone. What seems like a harmless distraction is actually one of the most disruptive elements in your walking pattern. The moment your attention shifts to a screen, your body follows, your head drops, your posture collapses, your awareness of your surroundings decreases, but more importantly, your brain disengages from the movement itself. Walking is not just physical, it's neurological. Your brain is constantly processing balance, coordination, spatial awareness. When that process is interrupted, your movement becomes less precise, and that's when risk increases. You don't notice the uneven surface. You don't adjust quickly enough. Your reaction time slows just slightly, and that slight delay is often all it takes. What makes this even more critical after 50 is that your body's ability to recover from small missteps is reduced. The same stumble that would have meant nothing years ago can now lead to something much more serious. And yet, even after all of this, there's one more layer that almost nobody considers. What happens after the walk? Most people finish, sit down, and move on with their day. No hydration, no stretching, no transition back to rest. But your body doesn't simply stop when you stop moving. It continues processing what just happened. If you don't support that process, recovery slows. Muscles remain tight instead of returning to their natural length. Circulation decreases instead of staying active. Small areas of tension remain instead of being released. And then the next day, you start again, on top of what hasn't fully recovered. This is how patterns build, not through one major mistake, but through small repeated ones that seem harmless in isolation, but powerful in accumulation. And here's the part most people never expect. You can do everything consistently and still move in the wrong direction. Consistency only works when the pattern itself is correct. Otherwise, you're not building health. You're reinforcing dysfunction. So the real question isn't whether you're walking, it's how you're walking, because the difference between healing and harm is not in the act itself, it's in the details that most people never notice. And once you start seeing those details, once you begin to understand how each small choice affects your body, everything changes. But there's one mistake, one specific pattern that ties all of this together in a way most people completely miss. And once you realize it, you'll understand why even people who do everything right still end up struggling. There is a point where all of this begins to overlap, where individual mistakes stop acting alone and start combining into something much more powerful, much more damaging than people expect. And that point is rhythm. Most people never think about rhythm when they walk. They think about distance, time, maybe even speed. But rhythm is what determines how efficiently your body handles every step. It is the invisible pattern that connects your muscles, your joints, your breathing, and your nervous system into one coordinated system. When rhythm is correct, movement feels smooth, almost effortless. When rhythm is off, even slightly, everything begins to work harder than it should. And here's where the hidden problem begins. After 50, your natural rhythm doesn't stay as stable as it used to. Small disruptions appear, your stride shortens a bit. Your timing shifts slightly. Your coordination becomes just a little less precise. None of this feels dramatic, which is why it goes unnoticed. But your body notices. Your system feels it. So what do most people do without realizing it? They force a pace that doesn't match their natural rhythm anymore. Instead of allowing their body to find its own timing, they try to maintain a speed they used years ago, or one they believe is correct. And the moment you force speed without stable rhythm, compensation begins again. Your steps become heavier. Your foot strikes the ground with less control. Your joints absorb more shock. Your breathing falls out of sync with your movement. And now, instead of walking with your body, you are working against it. At first, it just feels slightly uncomfortable, maybe a bit more tiring than expected. But over time, this mismatch between rhythm and speed creates a constant internal strain. And here's the part that most people misunderstand. It's not about walking slower, it's about walking in sync. Because when your breathing, your stride, and your arm movement fall into alignment, your body distributes effort evenly. Oxygen delivery improves, muscles contract more efficiently, energy usage becomes balanced. That's when walking starts to feel lighter instead of heavier. But when that synchronization is missing, every system begins to overcompensate. Now layer something else on top of that. Surface. Most people walk on whatever is available. Pavement, concrete, tiles, uneven paths. They don't think twice about it. But the surface you walk on directly changes how force travels through your body. Hard, unforgiving surfaces like concrete reflect impact back into your joints. Softer, more natural surfaces absorb part of that impact. When you consistently walk on hard ground, especially with poor rhythm or posture, the cumulative stress increases significantly, and because the body adapts to repeated stress, it begins to tighten in response. Your calves become more rigid, your ankles lose some of their mobility, your knees start to track slightly differently. Again, not enough to cause immediate pain, but enough to change your movement pattern. Then one day you notice something small. Your steps don't feel as smooth anymore. That's not random, that's adaptation. Now consider another layer that quietly interferes with everything. Fatigue. Not extreme fatigue, not exhaustion, just low-level persistent fatigue that most people carry without realizing it. When your body is even slightly fatigued, your movement quality changes, your posture weakens, your coordination drops, your reaction time slows. So even if you start your walk correctly, as fatigue builds, your form begins to break down. Your shoulders drop forward again, your head shifts, your steps lose precision. And because this happens gradually, you don't correct it. You continue walking in a compromised state. And this is where repetition becomes dangerous, because your body doesn't just remember good patterns, it remembers whatever you repeat most often. If the second half of every walk is done with poor form, that becomes the dominant pattern your body learns, not the strong start, the weakened finish. And then something even more subtle begins to develop. As these patterns repeat, your confidence in your movement starts to change. You may not consciously notice it, but your body does. It becomes slightly more cautious, slightly more guarded. Your steps become a bit more controlled, less fluid. This is not strength, this is compensation. And compensation always comes with a cost, because when one part of your body tries to protect itself, another part takes on extra load. That's how imbalances spread. That's how discomfort moves from one area to another without a clear cause. One week it's your knee, the next it's your hip, then your lower back. It feels unpredictable, but it isn't. It's connected. Now let's go deeper into something most people never associate with walking at all. Mental engagement. Walking is often treated as a passive activity, something you do while thinking about other things, planning your day, replaying conversations, worrying about problems. But your mental state directly affects your physical movement. When your attention is scattered, your body operates on autopilot. And autopilot is not precise. It relies on habits, whether those habits are correct or not. So if your walking pattern already has flaws, distraction reinforces them. But when your attention is present, when you are aware of your steps, your posture, your breathing, your surroundings, something changes. Your brain begins to correct small errors in real time. It fine-tunes your movement. It improves coordination without you forcing it. This is where walking becomes more than exercise. It becomes training, not just for your body, but for your nervous system. And this is exactly what most people are missing. They are moving, but they are not training. They are repeating, but they are not improving. And over time, that difference becomes visible. Now, here's where everything starts to come together in a way that most people don't expect. All of these factors, rhythm, surface, fatigue, attention, interact with each other. They don't exist separately. A small disruption in one area amplifies issues in another. Poor rhythm increases fatigue faster. Fatigue worsens posture. Poor posture reduces breathing efficiency. Reduced breathing lowers energy. Lower energy weakens coordination. It becomes a loop. And once that loop is established, simply continuing to walk does not break it. It reinforces it. This is why some people walk every single day and still feel like their body is slowly declining. Not because walking doesn't work, but because the pattern they are repeating is flawed at multiple levels. And here's the critical realization. Fixing just one mistake is not enough, because the system adapts as a whole. You correct your posture, but ignore your rhythm. Progress is limited. You improve your shoes, but remain distracted. Benefit is reduced. You walk more often, but finish every walk in fatigue. Adaptation is incomplete. Everything has to align. And that might sound overwhelming at first, but it's not. Because once you become aware of these patterns, once you start noticing them during your walks, correction becomes natural. You don't need to force it. Your body begins to guide you, but only if you're paying attention. And this brings us to a point that very few people ever reach. The difference between walking as a habit and walking as a skill. Most people stay at the habit level. They go through the motion, they check the box, they measure time and distance. But the people who actually transform their health approach walking differently, they refine it, they adjust it, they improve it over time. And the results they experience are completely different. Same activity, different outcome. Because the quality of movement determines the quality of results. And there is one final mistake, one that quietly sits behind everything we've discussed, influencing all of it without being obvious. Something so simple that almost nobody pays attention to it. But once you see it, you won't be able to ignore it again.